I could tell you, I could tell you when he was at TNA, he knew TNA was no WCW.
Yeah.
So he knows, bro, AEW is no WCW or WWE. I don't think he thinks that for a minute.
What's going on, everybody? Dr. Chris Featherstone here for yet another episode of Riding with Russo. I'm here with the namesake himself, former WWE head writer, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He is the biceps of stone, ladies and gentlemen, Vince Russo. Absolutely.
Thank you very much,
yes,
Doctor. Thank you.
How are you, my man?
I am all right. How are you?
Well, man, I'm well. So I'm well, but I'm actually a little happier than I'm probably supposed to be. My favorite wrestler of all time, my all-time favorite wrestler. You've known me for 3+ years now, solid. All right. My all-time favorite wrestler is blank.
Sting.
That's correct. Great job. Sting announced on a recent episode of Dynamite, that's Revolution coming up in a few months, is his last match ever. This stemming from retiring nearly 7.5 years ago after an injury and announcing the Hall of Fame. I think it was 2016, if I'm not mistaken. The Hall of Fame, and said because of a neck injury suffered by Seth Rollins during a match, I believe it was Night of Champions, if I'm not mistaken. This is all on top of my head. And he announced it. He was supposed to have some surgery, but he was like, you know what? He was able to wrestle more years, came back at a Winter is Coming, I believe, episode of in AEW, and just started wrestling again. just started wrestling and having matches and becoming more of a daredevil than he's ever been, jumping off of of decks and all types of stuff, and jumping off of ladders onto tables and messing up teeth and doing all types of just stuntman stuff. I imagine as someone who's approaching, do the math, carry the one, 65 years old. And he's like, hey, man, I might as well go all out and do everything before I retire. Vince Russo is someone who's worked very, very extensively with Sting. Your overall thoughts on his AEW run at 64 and a half years old, and also a little bit over 64 and a half, and also his retirement announcement. Do you think it was, do you think it's real? Do you think it can go into a storyline? Do you think it's both? Where are you at with this?
I mean, Chris, I would have to believe that it's real. I would just have to believe. Listen, man, I talked to him, and it was probably the last time I talked to him a little while after the Rollins injury. Okay. And he told me flat out that his doctor told him he was never going to be able to wrestle again. I mean, he told me that.
Yep.
And I don't think, bro, at that time he really did plan to wrestle again. But bro, whatever his reasons were for wrestling again, he went out there and wrestled again. And, you know, I was saying this all along as a fan and a friend. My God, bro, he had nothing left to prove to anybody.
Correct.
I mean, nobody. And I don't know, bro. I don't know if he was going out and doing all that Daredevil, Darby Allin stuff to try to get over with this younger niche audience and fit in with the locker room. I have no idea. But me personally, I just, you know, and I was saying this throughout when we were doing shows, bro. I just didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah.
The guy had a great career. The guy was an icon, a legend, had so many different lives, was such a great guy, man, such a great dude to be around and work with. But, I mean, you don't know the reasons why, and to him personally, why he went back and did that. So I'm just telling, my point of view and what I think.
Yeah. Clearly, Tony Khan's a fan of Sting. And, if there's one, from a personal standpoint, a very biased standpoint, if there's one thing that I'm very happy that Tony Khan has done, that is to kind of give us a new type of recency bias when it comes to the career of Sting. When he retired in 2016, it was based on his, of course, tenured career and his injury. But because people deal with recency bias as a whole, oftentimes you're as good as the last impression you give us. And when it came to Sting, he was booked as someone who had a really, really good angle leading up to his match with Triple H at WrestleMania. The crows, and times he was gone, and it would be crows coming, and it'd be times where there'll be like different, areas and fake stings, and Triple H was getting really spooked. And I really enjoyed the angle leading up to WrestleMania. I was actually at one of the episodes live where they were doing the crows coming from different places, and it was very well thought out. But we get to WrestleMania, and the match was so lackluster. It was a whole bunch of unnecessary bells and whistles. You had the NWO siding with Sting, and besides a Wolfpack hiccup as a babyface, he was the biggest foe of the NWO for most of their tenure. He was the foe, the NWO foe. And for some reason, the original NWO are now allies with Sting, and then DX came for Triple H. That made sense.
Yeah, that's because
it was just really weird.
That's because Vince didn't know any of that, bro.
Clearly, he clearly didn't know. Yeah, right. And so it was just really odd, and all of that to set up Triple H hitting Sting with the sledgehammer, and then one of the most weakest, softest endings to a match. Somehow Sting and Triple H shake hands at the end of the match after he just got a sledgehammer hit to him, which knocked him out. It made absolutely no sense to me. So that happened, and then the Seth Rollins thing happened. He loses to Rollins. That's what we get. We get a match on Raw, I think, Big Show or something like that, and turns to a tag match. I think that was one of his only wins. And so it was just a really lousy impression that was left with Sting. So do you think, Vince, that Sting was, I know he's a company guy and he's like, okay, cool, whatever you want is cool. But do you think in Sting's heart of hearts as a pro wrestling fan, he wanted to leave a much better impression than what he left in WWE?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. And if I were Sting, then I would have written the story. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is going to be my opponent. This is going to be my last match. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be, he had the power to do that without a shadow of a doubt. That's what I would have done. I would have written the perfect story, whether he wanted it to be a month or 2 months, ended with the perfect match, somebody that he could work comfortably with and it would be safe. Yeah. And, get the hand raised, go out on top, and he just now wiped out everything that happened at the WWE. Bro, that's just how I would have done it. That's all.
Yeah. I like I said, I do give Tony Khan credit for how he rebranded Sting. I do. I think that's, out of all the things that Tony Khan has done, I think, to me, and it's probably most likely biased, but I do think Tony Khan did a really good job of rebranding Sting to erase the stench that he had coming in, and that's what's going on. That stench was there for 5 years, about 5 years, and so I do think Tony Khan did a good job with that, as far as just making him feel like a legend again. He's undefeated in AEW. And so he was just another just body in WWE. And now he feels like a legend again. Sting, when he came in his Survivor Series, Survivor Series debut, which was amazing, surprising, he felt big. And then as the weeks progressed, especially at Mania and afterwards, he just felt like another person. Why do you think WWE has such that, reputation of making the biggest names dwindle down so much?
Because
we've seen that all the time, man.
Yeah, well, especially if the biggest names didn't come from there.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, without a shadow of a doubt. But I got to tell you, bro, I don't think Sting feels for a second that he's going out on any grand stage, bro. What he did in AEW was no different than what he did at TNA, and I could tell you, I could tell you when he was at TNA, he knew TNA was no WCW.
Yeah.
So he knows, bro, AEW is no WCW or WWE. I don't think he thinks that for a minute.
Yeah, that could be the case. I mean, you work with him, but I do think that he's much happier with the end of his career than when he did in 2016.
I'm not denying that at all. At all.
And that's good. I mean, I think he deserves that. I think he put in so many reps to do that, and he paid it forward tremendously in WWE. Vince, do you think this thing, and I know you work with him, I know he's a company guy, but he has feelings as a wrestler too, as far as protecting his brand. Do you think that Sting ever have any ounce of regret, based on your opinion, of making that move to the WWE?
Oh yeah, I do.
You think so?
I do.
Why do you think?
Because first of all, bro, I'm sure he was welcomed with open arms. I'm sure there were promises made, and I'm sure literally, bro, before too long, he saw the writing on the wall. I mean, there's no doubt about it, bro. Bro, listen, when at that point you'd been around as long as he had, bro, they ain't gonna get over on you. You're gonna go into this very, very skeptical, and it's almost like, bro, you're going to wait for it because it's coming. So I don't think he was caught by surprise at all, bro. Bro, I bet you wholeheartedly he went to that company wanting the Undertaker match that everybody else wanted. That was probably his motivation. I'm sure, bro, that's what was promised to him. I'm sure, Mark would have loved to work with Sting. And unfortunately, bro, that they just never made it there.
Well, both of them have said in interviews before that Sting has said that he really, really wanted that match.
Yeah.
Undertaker said he wasn't too big on it, towards the latter part of their career, and he didn't necessarily want it as much as Sting did. And which it's not necessarily a surprise because the timing was off. The timing just wasn't right. And I agree.
It was after the fact.
The timing just wasn't
no
there
question about that. Bro, but when you got two pros in that ring working together, I think it would have looked fine.
I think if you would have put some bells and whistles in it, the right kinds, like for instance, the Undertaker AJ match, I thought that match was absolutely phenomenal. I think that they did a great job, especially the COVID year, with putting a lot of theatrics in it. And I think theatrics done well is what wrestling should look like. The presentation that they gave during the Undertaker AJ match, phenomenal. And I think that if you would have done that with Taker Sting in some way, just think of the actors that would have been involved in that match. That would have been amazing. Just a catch as catch can, collar and elbow type of deal. I'm not interested. And Sting is my all-time favorite wrestler. I wanted to see Sting and Taker for a while. But eventually I was like, no, I as a fan didn't want to see it because I was like, you know what? Sting would probably most likely 99.9% chance this thing would have lost this match too. He's already buried to the ground as far as his brand in WWE, what they did, and then him just to lose another match, against the Undertaker wouldn't have helped Sting's brand.
Yeah.
And Sting was already to the point of he wasn't booked strong enough of how they did it to make it seem like he's any type of viable chance to beat the Undertaker. So after a while, I was like, I'm just not interested anymore either. Yeah. But Sting really wanted that match, though. He really wanted it. He really wanted to work with Taker. So that's still one of those matches we'll never get.
Yeah, when that's something, bro, that the fans are talking about for years.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, if you had the talent, you want to give them that.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But Sting, he was really hesitant with working with WWE because, of his moral standards and his ethics and stuff like that really, I think it was one of the times where there was been talks over the years of like he was kind of interested. There was a little bit of interest, and it started to grow a little bit more. And there may have even been talks, but there was one episode that he kind of got that he saw, or he was like, I kind of draw back on this. And so the TNA thing, he started to get more and more used to TNA. Working with him in TNA, there's been talks over the years that Dixie Carter to Sting was kind of like Vince McMahon to Taker, just continuing to talk him into signing year after year after year after year. Give us the inside and the backstage, intel on just as far as like Dixie Carter and Sting's relationship.
So Dixie was a lot like Tony Khan in this manner. She loved the ideas of big names working for her.
Okay.
That was like such a big. Ric Flair's working for me. Hulk Hogan's. That was a really, really big deal to her. And I think, bro, as time went on, because Sting being the man that he is, she, without a shadow of a doubt, had more trust in Sting because as time went on, she saw Flair's colors. She saw Hogan's colors. Bischoff wind up suing her. Mm-hmm. And, Sting was always a stand-up guy. There was never an issue with money or contracts or nothing. Mm-hmm. So I think at the end of the day, Dixie felt there was very, very few people she could trust, and he was definitely at the top of that list.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And it just seems like he was the biggest and most loyal big name. Like people, it's kind of the impression, especially from a viewer standpoint, that a lot of the legends were there just for a paycheck and their heart wasn't really in it. And they really weren't there to really move and advance the company as much as like, okay, the check feels good and, in the bank account. You can kind of get the impression from Sting that he was in there for the long haul and he really wanted to, advance and move the company. So I can appreciate that.
I agree 1000%.
Yeah, absolutely. So this match against at Revolution, there's not really any talk as far as who's it going to be or what's it going to be about. How do you think Sting should end up his wrestling career?
It just depends on who he's wrestling, bro. Knowing Sting, he's probably going to handpick somebody he wants to put over.
Darby, perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worry about. I would worry about that match.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, man. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see it. Like, just might as well just go into business for yourself for once, Sting.